Ah.
Cheers.
I'm telling you, if there wasn't literally 2 more episodes, I don't know that I would finish the
I
show.
don't think I would either.
What's up, my know-it-alls? Well, that's right. It's that time again. And we're talking Thursday morning, and that means She-Hulk. Wow. Okay, episode 7. I don't even know what the title of this episode is. It's The Retreat. That's right.
The
Episode
Retreat.
7, The Retreat. So
wait, let's just start off with it was a good episode.
Okay, fair.
It was.
Fair. It was a good
We're
episode.
gonna start there. We enjoyed it.
I feel okay. Before we go into anything, because I normally would go into the recap and whatnot, and I will, but I think I'm gonna give a much shorter recap because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. I liked the episode. I think the episode itself. This is the perfect version of what I think the She-Hulk show could be and should have been, possibly since at most episode 3. I feel like, and we can kind of get into, and a lot of this is building toward, I think, a fuller She-Hulk series review. So I think when we're done with the final episode, I would like to do an actual full-on series review that says, okay, let's dive deep and tear this thing apart.
Sure, I'm down.
Because I feel like there is some place to go with this. The episode starts with Jenn and Josh going on a series of dates, and it's building up to the classic, first date, second date, and then third date. And the third date, they sleep together, or as she says, "Ew," when someone says "make love." But at the end of the day, she's very much, and then she's what else would happen to our misbegotten Jenn Walters? He disappears, and she doesn't get a call back, and she doesn't know what's going on, and he has fallen off the planet. She is ghosted. At least that's how it seems. And I say that's how it seems because we don't know actual facts, or do we? So from there you get she gets called by a warrant officer who is specifically there to monitor Emil Blonsky, the Abomination.
That's his parole officer, right?
Yeah. Parole officer, specifically
officer.
who monitors his ankle bracelet.
Right.
And the ankle bracelet went off, the anti-transformation one. So it's not, he doesn't have like a it isn't like a house arrest
there
type
you go,
setup.
yeah.
It is like it in that it's the same kind of device, but it's not like it in that they don't care where he goes. They just want to make sure he
turn into the Abomination.
Correct. Yeah. So it goes off. The guy calls and says, "Hey, can you come with me? We don't have enough resources for a full SWAT team to come with me," because the guy's super paranoid that that Emil has turned into what you call again.
It's very comical the way he acts.
Oh, totally.
I mean,
really
it's your good. It was your good comedy.
No, for sure.
He's terrified to even go near the retreat house.
Doesn't he remind you of the dude who played the FBI agent in Mr. Right?
I was gonna say that.
Oh my God. Okay, so Mr. Right's one of our guilty pleasures. Go on Netflix, watch it. It is both a terrible movie and an excellent movie.
Wonderful.
Terrible movie in that it's not written incredibly well, and it's actually super contrived, but it's so much fun. Anyway, sorry, totally different thing. We should probably review that at some point. on our, I've been talking about doing a thing, whatever. Sorry, we'll talk later.
For more coffee.
Totally. So Jenn realizing that she's been, so now we've switched from her trying to get a hold of Josh to now her constantly checking her phone. Literally, we follow her in a car, and in about a half-mile distance from above, she's like checking her phone. So it's very much she's trying to get a hold of Josh to figure out what's going on. She gets to the retreat. Come to find out, I guess according to Emil, he accidentally touched a electrical fence, which is probably what caused it to happen. Either way, there's no sign that he did anything or anything transformed, whatever, and it's good. But then a couple of folks, specifically a guy named Manbull and his bromance brenemy, I guess we call it a
Bronemy?
Bronemy, yeah, bromancy enemy. Anyways,
These two were
this guy named
amazingly funny.
El Águila, who is El Águila is supposed to be a Spanish whatever, might be superhero, might be villain, whatever. But I guess his whole deal is that he's got an identity crisis because everyone thinks he looks like a matador, and that seems to trigger Manbull. Anyway, and they proceed to tear up her Prius, and so she's got to wait for a tow truck. Which the retreat is way out there. So Emil's like, "Hey man, make yourself comfortable. At least
lots of land,
enjoy the amenities or whatever." And so he gets her to. She's trying to find cell phone service because there is no cell phone service. Because remember, she's worried about Josh. And so she ends up in their group therapy session. In their group therapy session, everyone's working out some stuff. You have a guy who thinks he's a vampire. So I feel like you have real superpowered people like Manbull and El Aguila, who you find out has like a bioelectric sword. Yeah, it's dope. It's could be. He pulls it out. He's like, "We're going to do this thing," and the other, and lightning strikes out. Yeah, it's very, very cool. So you're like, okay, so these guys aren't fakers per se. Some of them have actual abilities. Then in walks the dude who mugged her.
One of them.
And it's the guy who, I'll show the clip right here. It's the guy who tried to mug her in the first episode, or the second episode after she got her powers. And he was one of the wrecking crew who had all the Thor construction stuff. Asgardian construction stuff. That's right.
But he was the one that was like all the way in the back, so I thought that was interesting.
Right. So and so that kind of begins. So she becomes, she hulks out and throws him, and everyone's like, "Oh, why all the violence?" It's so funny, and essentially they finally get out of her what's going on. They start talking. Everyone starts opening up a little bit. It's kind of a really cute version of what this scene could be. So last week I was very, very critical of the storytelling going on in the show. This week I'm not. Funny enough. Last week was supposed to be a completely enclosed episode, which is like the wedding episode. This felt more like a completely enclosed episode.
This was a full episode, in my opinion.
And I think it's because last week felt like it was a dangling participle from the previous Titania stuff. Yeah. So literally, you were still dragging the Titania story across the finish line to get to last week's episode 6. So now here we are in episode 7. And this actually did feel... Here's the thing. In the comic books, Jenn Walters is a superhero lawyer. The way they're leaning toward trying to set her up in the show is how she is in the series, or in the comics. But it's always goofy. She has to deal with the frog, or it's funny, there's the equivalent of DC Comics has Kite Man, who's like a goofy D-list villain / anti-hero. That's who she normally deals with, is those kind of characters. Because they get into
someone like the porcupine or Bullman.
Hi, my name is my name is Hot Wheel. I'm a super speedster, and I got a speeding ticket. Now she has to help him get out of court in a speeding ticket.
Right.
Okay. Why? Cool. Because the law does not designate whether or not speeding tickets should be given to vehicles or anything that moves over a certain speed. Get it? That's the kind of nonsense you'd see in the comics. Sure. Nonsense. I use nonsense as my way of saying something fun, because I've always joked I'm a recovering narcissist. When you're a recovering narcissist, anything that isn't what you got going on is a nonsense.
Took me a second to learn that.
Yeah, so I tend to I joke tongue in cheek. I'm like, she's got to deal with all the courty nonsense, especially with superheroes. Anyway, so this episode felt like that. Mm-hmm. I did enjoy it. Then you get to the end, and the episode ends fine. Then you get to the button. A
big acceptance, too, for her.
Yes. It's funny. Robert Meyer Burnett, he's a guy I follow. R.M. Burnett, he's on the John Campea show and whatnot all the time. He tweeted this morning after, "What does this show want to be?" And I had to laugh so hard. I was like, yeah, no, I feel you on that. So I believe the Ally McBeal comparison is accurate. I believe that's what, even though Jessica Gao has said she didn't want to do it, that I had no idea that was the thing. Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, that I believe is the paragon of what the show should be. You take goofy D-list superheroes and potentially villains. Once in a while, you cross them with somebody big. Oh, by the way, Daredevil Watch Day 17. No Daredevil.
No Daredevil.
Just putting it out there.
Not even a little.
No, not even a speck of him. Nothing. Not even a breath of him. Nothing. So we have 2 episodes left now. So at the button of this episode, you know what? This is the one thing I'm not going to spoil, because I feel like y'all need to see it yourself. The button on this tells you find out what happened to Josh, and I feel like, so watch the episode yourself. Feel free to discuss it in the comments below. I would love to jump in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm not gonna spoil that piece, because I feel like that piece is super important. So it happens at the tail end of the episode. Here's my problem with it. It connects to like last week's button, which is a big comic booky feeling thing. I don't care. We're at episode 7, bro. These two, last week's button and this week's button, should have been at the end of episodes 3 and 4. You know what I mean? You should have been here, dude. We should know what's going on, because right now, I feel extraordinarily rushed. Because you have 2 episodes left, and I don't know how in the world, in literally an hour's worth of time. Because
nothing's going over a half hour.
That's right.
I mean, we had 34 minutes, and we all know they count credits for that.
Right.
So this is maybe a good 26-minute episode.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you have these 2 more episodes. So you're trying to tell me that in 1 hour's time, you're going to be able to wrap up, or at this major point, either that, or you sure as heck are going to have to dump us into something else. Meaning whatever the next series is or something, and I don't know how that's going to work for.
Do we know if it's gotten renewed? I say renewed.
I've heard nothing, but the thing is, as much as everybody wants, so I absolutely love, what's her face, Gina Gonzaga, who plays Nikki.
Yeah.
Okay, I really love her. She tweeted some like weird offbeat like Discount Nielsen's, who's like, She-Hulk's the #1 streaming show, thanks guys. And it's this list of shows, and they're all various, it's like Lord of the Rings and blah blah, this and that, and She-Hulk's #1. So I'm sitting here going, oh, clearly this is not a reputable source, because Nielsen's already told us flat out, She-Hulk is the lowest rated Marvel thing to ever come out. Here's the thing, I love the character. I actually don't hate what they've presented us. I hate how it's been presented, because I like Tatiana Maslany as Jen Walters. I like the character of She-Hulk when she's being She-Hulk. I like everything happening. None of it is working, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so the show is, I quickly feel like it is spiraling fast.
What did I say to you after we watched I feel like, and maybe they did, they filmed this all as a movie and they chopped it up. Well, that's fine. I get that. I mean, it is. However, it was not edited well as far as blending all the all the episodes together, and that's frustrating. That's because it's choppy then.
So let's talk brief. Okay. I'm debating whether I want to do the ratings now or wait till the end. Let's have a conversation real quick.
Okay.
So I like. When it comes to this show, my issue is we know for a fact, because these things have come out, that the original version of this series was almost virtually finished. Episode 6 was originally where her origin story lived. Yeah. That's the story of Bruce and her, blah, blah, blah. Chances are it would have started with 3 months earlier or whatever, and you would have found out essentially her origin story. And that was supposed to be last week's episode. Now, I do not believe, under any circumstance, that the origin story, well, I guess, okay, that's a lie. I just talked myself into it. The origin story could totally have been there if it was maybe what she was talking to Josh about. Hey, so what's going on, blah, this and that. Oh, well,
that totally would have worked. That would have worked.
So, like, how did you get your powers? Or something coming goofy, and then they go into telling the backstory, origin story.
Tell me about Jenn.
Right. No, totally. And so what ends up happening is that you get to this last week's episode, and I don't know where you would have put it, the origin story stuff, especially because last week's episode felt fairly well contained-ish. So now you're like, then they have someone has to go in and do surgery and re-edit the entire series because too many things now have moved. You've taken out a major chunk of what should have been episode 6. Thus, you know what you do? You get rid of all the pieces of episode 6 and I feel like episode 6 would have been a better place for all. I would have rather had her origin story there and then have that lead into the guys trying to take her blood and combine, like, let everything come to a head at episode 6 where we learn her origin story, find out this other thing, get the bad guy motivation, and now you have 7, 8, and 9, 3 solid episodes to then wrap up your story. That's not the case. So I have zero confidence they're going to wrap this up well. I would like to believe I'm wrong. I really went into this week's episode hoping this was going to be different. I did like this episode much better than I liked last week's episode. But at the same time, they're still making a lot of the same mistakes. So, with that all said, did anything stick out that you want to cover before I move on? I'm sorry, I don't want to move on without covering anything you wanted to talk about.
I don't like the way they made Jenn look so hopelessly desperate with her phone. We're women. I get it.
I don't mind that.
Well, no, I do, because
Okay,
if we're going to talk about how this is, if we're going to talk about how this is a woman producer and everybody is female on here,
right?
Which they are really proud of, I'm not proud of how they're representing women at this point.
That's one of y'all's.
For example, she's constantly going like this. Now, when I was dating this one,
Before she was Mrs. Know-It-All.
Before I was Mrs.
When
Know-It-All.
she was Mrs. Doe.
Mrs. Joe, I love that. I would get excited because he's gonna text me, and and I get it. She hasn't heard from him,
Sure.
but usually, like after day 3, you're kind of like, you're ghosted, and you move on or whatever.
Yeah.
This seemed very desperate. It seemed she kept blaming, I want work. That's why she couldn't find a Wi-Fi signal. The itty bitty tiny first little bar that you get on your phone appears, and when she's in the group meeting, I just felt like there was a lot. We covered driving. We covered Josh.
Oh, yeah, you said that.
Phone and driving, like the first 18 minutes maybe
of a 30-minute episode.
We did decide it was 26.
You guys got to count the credits. Oh yeah, so here I am.
Yeah,
you're right. Because here I am.
It's not
with the
much
credits.
of an episode.
So,
okay,
before the animated credits, you get to 28:15. So the episode is officially, not counting the animated credits, because there is no post-credit scene. The button is at the end of the episode this time. Forgive me. And so yeah, you're right. You only get 28 minutes of an episode.
And a lot of it was her.
And 18 of that was Jenn, all the ramp up and opening.
Yeah.
Now I
mean, like
I think I said it last week. Or I said it this morning. I would have preferred. Why wasn't Jenn the attorney for the Immortal Man stuff? Like literally, guys, make her the thing.
As fun as Nikki and I forgot her other name.
We didn't get to see her in her purple She-Hulk
purple
suit. The problem is that we don't get to see it because
she's literally in the office for 2 minutes.
Yeah, so it's
checking her phone. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I mean, that was I guess that's one of the what's
all right. So there you go. Now you know. And if knowing is half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. So what is the know-it-all indices between the two of us? I will go first. I'm fine. She-Hulk episode 7, The Retreat. I'm going to bump it up a little bit from last week, and I'm going to give it I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I'll do 6 out of 10. It's more than half. So average is 5. Would be like middle of the road. This is a hair better than that. Last week I think I did 4. So last week's episode, because it pissed me off, was a 4. Yeah. So this week's episode for me, I'm gonna do 6 out of 10. Where do you live?
6 out of 10, easy. I was gonna say 7, but the part with the whole female thing just is. I didn't care for that part, so yeah, you lost a point.
I do find it interesting that in previous seasons, like for Boba Fett and things like that I've reviewed, my reviews have on average been very close to the IMDb and even Rotten Tomatoes reviews in a lot of ways. Right now, on the IMDb, She-Hulk is sitting at a 5. That's probably, if I were to average, if I go back, when we do the series wrap up, I'm going to go back and average all of the scores. Because at the end, when I do the series wrap up, I will give a final score, but I'm going to purposely average all my other scores.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make an original.
I think that's a really good idea.
I'm not going to make an original.
Let's average them. I think, that's a good idea.
Because I really would love to see where that lands.
And the episode was good. We giggled, we laughed.
Giggled I think is appropriate.
Yeah,
I didn't have any hard laughs.
This is the type of, if we did the first episode, we were excited and fun. If this felt like way sooner than what it did, it'd be great.
If this episode had been, I would have been okay with Mr. Immortal being the 3rd episode, which I think it was not.
No,
I think it was episode 4. So if you bump Mr. Immortal forward, make this episode 4, meaning this retreat nonsense scenario thing. I say not, you know what I'm saying. The cute part of that stuff. Make that part, and now you start giving us the premise of what the big overarching thing is sooner. Here's the other thing. Everything we're saying, I would happily throw away, rip up, trash, and go with them if they just leaned into the legal comedy side. This is not a legal dramedy. It is not. It is a pseudo superhero show that is masquerading as a legal comedy because you don't get enough legal anything, and frankly, you're not getting a lot of comedy.
are.
But you're also not getting a lot of comedy anymore either. Like she said, we chuckled. I don't know that I've had a big hard.
It wasn't. We didn't have those hearty belly laughs like we've seen like in previous
in previous series,
or even like Deadpool.
Yeah.
Like well, that's
sure.
just. I'm sorry, I don't mean something.
No,
Like
no,
that type of laughing.
Well, and also you can definitely tell like they backed down from. I don't think we got. Were there any fourth wall breaks? Did she look? I think
yes.
There was one.
Oh, when the henchman. And I wanted to say something about that henchman, okay? Because we had I started like spewing out theories like left and right once the henchman showed up. I'm like, okay, the henchman. That means everybody's involved with the whole stabbing with the needle, and then nothing happened. And then she's getting ready to leave, and she's sitting there with Emil, getting in the car of the tow truck, and I turn to Mr. Know-It-All, and I say, they're all going to change. Once she leaves, they're going to all be the people that, jumped her. No, I got nothing. I got more questions because, well, you'll see when you go to watch the episode on why I have more questions. It's unfortunate.
So yeah, all right. Well, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you thought. Like, please, the video. Share if you can. We'd love to be able to kind of expand the series and let everybody know a little more about the show. Obviously, the show, the series. This is Mr. Know-It-All Reviews, and yeah, we should also be dropping another video either later today or possibly tomorrow, later in the week, which is going to be talking. I think it's time we're going to sit down and have a conversation about the state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Kind of talking through some of the things, what's come, what's gone.
That'll be fun because I always liked Marvel before we met, and now that we're married, I'm like immersed in like the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I feel like I kind of got a little cool perspective because this was forced down my throat for 3 years.
I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no.
So that'll be fun.
Right.
That'll be my I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it. So.
Cool. Never forget, everyone
loves a know-it-all.
Bam. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.